Good evening. This is the November 28th, 2018 Board of Appeal hearing. There are a couple petitions this evening, and before we start, we have minutes, members, from last month, October, which I know Kathy sent out to everyone. And if we had a chance to look them over, any corrections, or Catherine wasn't with us last month, and Dino is not here, so it's John, myself, Adam, and Bill. Any changes or corrections? And if not, would someone like to make a motion to accept these? This is from last month, October 18th. Second? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Our first petition will be Attorney McDonald and the property on Lebanon Street. The board did not get what I received a few days ago, a written request asking to extend without prejudice the time for the hearing. And there were two separate petitions filed on this particular property. So Mr. McDonald is going to give us an explanation why they're requesting the extension, and then if we so grant, I think we'd have to do two motions because they were two separate petitions. Mr. McDonald.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the board. Patrick McDonald on behalf of the petitioner in this matter with offices at 477 Eastern Ave. As you indicated, Chairman, the petitioner is requesting the board's indulgence with respect to a request to postpone or continue this hearing until the next regularly scheduled meeting of the board, which I believe is December 19th. And the reason for that request is that we have been asked by both ward councilors, Barbara Murphy and David Kamel, to try to coordinate a neighborhood meeting regarding the petition and the potential for reopening of the subject convenience store at that location. The butter list that they asked us to consider for purposes of that meeting was substantially larger than the statutory definition of a butter. It amounted to, I did the count today actually, about 217 households in the very larger surrounding area.
Does that include some Melrose as well?
I think there might have been one or two addresses in Melrose. Frankly, I was the one who prepared the abutters list by using the service at the city's website. So I might have clicked on a house or two that was technically outside the city line. But our feeling was better be more thorough than less thorough in response to the ward councilor's request. I can confirm to the board that we do have a meeting scheduled. We confirmed the date today. It's next Thursday at 6:30 at the location, and the notices to the requested abutters have gone out, and the ward councilors are aware of that. This will give us an opportunity to have the meeting, to accommodate the councilors, and if having it on the 6th, if the next meeting is on the 19th, I would think that would be sufficient time to hopefully address any issues or concerns that may be raised by abutters, and in that case, we would certainly be in a position to go forward on the 19th.
Okay, and you're correct. Our next meeting is for the 19th.
Right. I don't believe that puts us outside any statutorily required timeframes for action by the board, but if it did, we would certainly waive expressly any timeframes that might be impacted by that.
As you referenced in the request you sent me, I believe.
I may not have included that language, but I will state it here.
If you we'll put it in there?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
And as far as advertising, because we're a week later than usual, we're usually the third week, but these people wanted to shoot turkeys, so we didn't have a meeting last week. So we're a little later in the month. For you to advertise, you don't need to go into public notice, just on our agenda?
No, the public notice is required for this meeting. We're here. You've called the meeting to order, called the matter. Now it's being publicly continued. I would suggest to the board that no further publication is required at this point in time.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's
okay.
It.
So would we like to, any member entertain a motion to grant an extension without prejudice? And again, there was two separate petitions filed for this property. So I would suggest that we handle it as two separate motions as well. And for which is the first one stated in our agenda, which is section 500.2.2. That one? All right, a second? And all those in favor? Okay, and then, John, would you make a motion on the second petition that was filed on behalf of this property owner? And that would be, I'm sorry, I just quoted 502, which pertains to the Bay State that's coming up. John, if you could, again, I gave you the wrong section in the code. It's 800, the administrative appeal, I believe. So the first petition that we're granting the extension on is section 800.4.1.3. And a second on that? All those in favor? Aye, okay. And then our second petition for that property owner is section 700.1.5. And would someone make a motion on that? Okay, and all those in favor? All right. So we'll plan on seeing you 3 weeks out, the 19th, I think it was, on
Yes.
December. And if the written request you had already submitted to me, if it doesn't contain the language about without prejudice, if you would send that, I'd
I'll
appreciate it.
supplement that
Okay.
tomorrow morning.
Okay, great.
Thank you all very much.
Okay. All right, Bay State comments. Need a minute, Counselor?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. I have tear sheets for you as well.
I'll take those, please. You have an ad? I'll use this one. So this is the petition of Bay State Commons LLC for a variance of section 500.2.2, Chapter 12 of the revised ordinances as amended of the City of Malden, namely general off-street parking requirements and section 400.1.2.5 of Chapter 12 of the revised ordinances of 1991 as amended of the City of Malden, dwelling, multifamily dwelling, dimensional controls as per plans at the property known as and numbered 368 Pleasant Street, Malden, and also known by City Assessor Parcel ID Map 30, Map 134, Parcel 416. And for anyone that referenced some GIS material, I believe that we have a mistake out in the street. It says 369 rather than street number rather than 368. But the subject property is 368.
Yes.
And it's Mr. DeMarco.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Roberto DeMarco. I'm the resident of Malden, 17 Division Street, here in the city. I represent Bay State Commons LLC. I was before you a few months back concerning an administrative appeal. After that hearing, we went back and we redesigned. We went back to our group, which I'll introduce to you in a minute, and we also went back to how this project can be done in the most efficient, economical, and neighborhood-friendly manner. The project has been reduced to the number of stories necessary within the area, so that is no longer an issue. We are looking at 4 variances. The 4 variances specifically are for parking. We are setting up 1 spot per bedroom in the building. And so to do that, and to do it underground, we have a few surface lots, but to do it underground, we're needing to vary a few of the technical requirements of the parking spots. The architects will go into that in more detail. The second variance we're looking for has to do with the setback. We're moving the property, the building, closer to Pleasant Street, away from the back neighbor, so that they're able to have more open space in front of them between us and them, so it's away from the residential neighborhood. This still makes us deeper into the property than the average setback along Pleasant Street. Along Pleasant Street, as you may know, that section of Pleasant Street, the buildings are built pretty close to the street, all along it. The third is open space. The open space requirement is if we were to stack this building up on itself, we'd be fine. But we're designing it for a style of living. We're spreading the building out a little bit more. But we're also including a lot of amenities that are non-code open space. We have a number of patios, which you'll see from the designs when the architects get up. We have a number of open areas, gardens, et cetera. So when you add those in, we have quite a bit of actual areas for people to enjoy the outside. And fourth, the variance we'll be looking for is density. We're sticking 30 units on the property. And economically, it's necessary to do that because of the high cost related and the design of the property. So we're dealing with topographical dimensions of the property, the financial investment in digging down to put the parking in, and those things, and it makes it necessary for us to have all of these units. We're dealing with a group of people who are not developers. I want to stress that. They are homeowners coming together to build a community. This is an excellent project for the city of Malden. These are people who want to be a part of our community, build the community fabric. They have made the property, once they purchased it, they made it available to the fire department and the police department for training exercises. They reached out to the community to have multiple neighborhood meetings. We've been having meetings for better than a year with various people. We have met with the abutters a couple of times to talk to them about what they need and what they would like to see. We're addressing their issues in the design. We are building in affordable units and working with the MRA to do so. So we're doing everything that a good, smart development needs to do to make it part of a good addition to the community. We're using a lot of modern construction techniques, permeable surfaces in order to avoid any type of water, surface water, and to absorb the water into the property, which is something that doesn't happen now. It's completely covered with asphalt and parking, so you're going to have a better drainage. And overall, the project and its builders are doing what they can to balance the interests of the neighborhood and make sure that they are not a detriment. We have met, as I said, with several of the neighbors. We have made ourselves available to all the area. We have met with the city councilor for the area. We have talked to the mayor's office. We have done everything we can do to make sure that the interests of the abutters as well as interested parties are met. I would invite the architects up to guide you through the project at this point, if that's okay, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
And I will be back to answer any questions you might have afterwards.
Good evening. Hi. My name is Anda French, and I'm from the architecture firm French 2D. And this is Lyndon Shampkin from the Shampkin French Architects. And we're both going to just speak very briefly to give you an idea of the design. And then, of course, we're here to answer any questions. So we conceived of this building as an expression of the commitment and the involvement of the families who've chosen to come together as neighbors to each other and who hope to be neighbors to the Malden community. And just as the homeowners want to be good neighbors, the building itself is designed to act as a good neighbor. So it's not a monolithic box, ignoring its context, but instead it's a playful set of shifting forms which create shared open spaces and provide privacy where needed. We've designed a 3-story building with facades that are expressive of house form elements, while including a variety of green open spaces, terraces at the step-back building faces, and lawns and garden areas. It's important to note that the coverage issue, which Rob spoke about, is important in that we could have created a box where everything was all stacked together tightly, but to create these quality spaces for both the community and also for the views and the privacy and the issues around for the neighbors, we have sort of unpacked that box. And you can see that in each of the floor plans where you see the pink pieces, those are the terraces. So this building starts to erode as it gets higher. Also, Rob spoke about the setback issue. The 20-foot setback still allows for a very generous walkway, which is fully accessible and is meant to be open as a garden area and as an area for the community to enjoy as well. And Linda just has a few more comments, and then we're, again, happy to answer any questions.
Again, Linda Neshampkin French Architects. It was very important to Bay State that the building and its site be accessible, and that goal is carried out through both in terms of circulation to and through the building, and in terms of circulation throughout the site. You can take a look at the site plan here, and I know that you have your plans in front of you as well. We've been able to design this so that, in fact, the walkways are continuous through the various open space at the rear and at the front as well. Materials are anticipated to be a mixture of brick and clapboard, respectful of the materials of the surroundings on Pleasant Street and in the abutting residential neighborhood. And there is really a mix of materials as you look around the more institutional buildings on Pleasant Street and the residential clapboard buildings, et cetera, at the neighborhood. A particular goal of Bay State Commons is to be an environmentally responsible and sustainable community. Those goals are embodied in the design of the building, we believe, and in the choice of materials and systems which will be incorporated into the building, and in the overall site design. And the site's integration with its surrounding of the Malden environment and Malden infrastructure. Permeable paving, as an example. In terms of sustainability, our parking ratio, which is meeting the one per bedroom for the whole community, at the same time presents an urban model in terms of the parking circulation, something that is common in the Boston metropolitan area. In terms of our drive widths. We're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Hi, I had a question. Are you familiar with the previous project that was presented last June regarding this project?
Yes, that was our project.
Okay.
Yes.
We have to just get on the record, I think, the differences between the two. Would you mind just, so we have it on the record, can you just summarize the difference between the prior project and the present?
Absolutely. So we have taken off any 4 stories. So it's all 3 stories and under 35 feet. To do that, the parking has been submerged even further as well to make sure that that first floor is almost on grade.
And you said it's less stories than the prior?
Yes, sorry. So the original design was 4 stories, and this is 3 stories.
Okay, I just interrupted there. Over basement, over parking.
Over parking, which is fully submerged.
So it was 4-story over parking, it's now 3-story over parking.
Yes, and the parking has also been dropped 4 feet as well. So it was a half
The height
level.
of it? Okay,
Exactly.
yeah. And the other changes that the gentleman was asking about?
In terms of the footprint of the building, in order to take the 4th story down, a small leg has been added at the south end of the site. Right, you can see right here. And we've made it a point to take that and to cut it back to 2 stories when it gets closer to the neighbor. So it sort of starts to step down at that point. And then the other piece of the building, which is on the western side, also steps back on the 3rd floor. So those are the sort of changes to make this building pull away from its rear.
My other question was, is there a way, if there were fewer units in this building, is there a way to build this so that we wouldn't have, variances wouldn't be needed?
So I think that's probably, it's a good question for Rob DeMarco as well. From an architectural standpoint, it's one question. From, I think, the numbers standpoint, it's another, to make the project viable for the community and for them to build all of the sort of the above and beyond spaces beyond what a developer might build for 30 units, let's say, or 24.
If we were building a development that was going to be rented, and these were just developers, yes, you could do that. We could probably shove more units into the area, but what they've done is they've built a lot of community space, and not just their community space that's, you know, they've talked to other nonprofits that would use, et cetera. So the objective of this community, because they are not developers, we have residents of Malden actually who are part of this, who are buying units in this. So you're not going to have that increase in you know, the overall population, stuff like that. So they've had to, economically, they've had to add in enough units that can cover the costs, because when we're talking about things like pushing the garage down, the construction costs escalate every foot you go down. And so we're at a point where it just can't be done by these people. I mean, so if you told them no, then this building would go on the market. They're not able to do better. They've actually pushed the price point, which they're not making a profit on. Like I said, they're not developers, so they're not pulling a profit, and they're going to actually make affordable units. They wouldn't be able to afford it. We've got units here that are going to be speccing out at close to $700,000 for a unit, and people are willing to invest that because they believe in the community. So we're economically at the limit of our ability.
I can see one of the members would like to speak, and I'm going to allow her to in a moment. I just want to, two things. Was the prior plan 30 units?
Yes, it was.
It was, okay.
Yes, it was.
So it remained 30 units to story height. And then, again, I'm going to have Catherine speak, but I'm going to just make a suggestion. Rob laid out 4 areas of variance that's being requested. I, for one, maybe would like to hone in on each one of them maybe and drill down and retire each one of them if we could with the questions. But before we do that, and then the first thing you brought up was about parking. So I have questions about the curb cut and the flow of the traffic and all that, but I'm going to let Catherine speak first. In that sequence? Okay. So if we did take the approach I was asking, first issue that you raised was on the variance request for the parking. So curb cut, is it, what's the flow coming in from Pleasant? Is it?
We're going to be going in, yeah, actually,
Okay.
the architects and designers can actually help out.
Do you want to pull up that plan? Thanks. So there are 2 curb cuts existing, and those curb cuts will stay. They will both be 2 ways. One of them goes in and out of the garage, and the other goes to the back of the property, and that was something that we worked with the fire department to make sure that that got them access to the back of the property.
Is there an in and out of the garage?
Sorry?
Is there 2 access points to the garage?
So there's a double lane coming in and out of the garage, so it's
Okay,
through,
it's a double lane. Okay.
exactly.
And on the parking, we said 30 units, I'm sorry, 30 units, but 50 bedrooms.
Yep.
And code is looking for 1 per, so that gets us to the 50. And I know you broke out.
Yep.
I'm on C100 page, ladies and gentlemen, if anyone wants to follow along here. So it's 8 standard exterior.
Yep.
And then 32 standard spaces inside the garage, as well as 2 handicap and 8 in tandem for 50. So you're showing a total of 58?
Oh, no, we're showing a total of 50 spaces. Sorry, that is very small type on the civil drawings, I realize.
Okay. And how many are outside the garage versus on the site versus inside?
Yep, 8 on the site,
Okay.
and, yep, and 42 in the garage.
All right, and the issue with the aisle and the turnaround, that pertains to the exterior spaces or the interior or both?
Interior only in the garage, and it's not all of the lanes, it's portions of them to make sure that it fits.
Okay. Again, we're on the parking issue. If anyone else had a question or comment, did Catherine, was yours pertaining to that? Okay. And I think John does as well. I have to turn you on, though, so you punch it up, and then I give you power. And you got it,
Oh,
I
great.
think.
I'm curious whether you are showing sort of standard size parking spaces within the lower level in the basement. Nothing's a economy-sized car
No, we're showing all standard size units based on Malden's zoning code.
Okay, and then also, do you have a plan for the tandem spaces? Are they,
Yes, so the
Organized in a
tandems,
certain way?
if you want to pull up the plan, so the tandems would all be spaces that are allotted to units. So you wouldn't have a back space belonging to someone that lives in a different unit.
so it'd be one single unit would get both of those spaces?
Exactly. And you can point out where.
Currently, that's all my questions about parking.
It looked like there was some big three-bedroom units. Would they be getting the tandem spots?
Yes, exactly. I think we'd start from the list
Yeah.
down from there. Yeah.
John, you had some questions?
The garage.
I gotta do something here?
Loud.
No, there you go.
Okay. I don't get close enough to the microphone anyway, so. It's, in the construction here, is this all just basically open area in the garage? Is how much support? Is it looks, I don't see too many columns. I mean, there's a few, I guess.
Yep. So the column grid is essentially on about a 25-foot grid, and you can see the columns wherever there's a double line between any of the spaces. That's to allow for the size of the column and to make sure it doesn't impede on the space.
Okay, so that this whole, see, I'm just concerned about the size here. I mean, there's no aisles that meet the zoning requirements, right? Am I true? Is that right? Yeah. Inside the garage, yes. None?
Well, for all of the spots that are in the tandems, you do have the 24 feet behind.
Yeah.
But as soon as you get deeper into the parking lot, yes, you're
Right.
correct. There's
Okay.
and the minimum is always 18 feet to make sure that we're maintaining a sort of urban garage
Right,
model.
but I guess, what, six of them are basically, six of the 8 that are less than, are 19 feet 5 and 7/8 inches? Because you've got a wall
Yeah.
behind them, you've got the elevator behind
Yes.
some of them,
Yep.
and mechanical room and other cars. So there's very few spaces that meet that. But again, we come back kind of to that number of spaces. I mean, whether you're homeowners or developers, everybody wants more units in their building. I mean, because it keeps costs down for whether it's a homeowner or for it's a developer. But this garage would easily be able to take out a few spaces without doing any kind of structural work. Is that right?
I think I don't understand the question. As in, we could
If I made
eliminate spaces?
If I made
Yep.
4 or 5 spaces vanish,
To make others larger?
to make the aisles wider. I mean, you could do that and, at least get around by the entrance and exit, which is, there's only one. You could make it larger by taking, say like, 31, 28, 32, 29, and 30, out moving those other spaces over.
I can answer that where the columns do come down in the thinner C shape of the building above,
Yep.
that we would then have to increase the lot coverage, unfortunately, if that's the sort of trade-off, to increase the lane where you get the legs. They would have to get wider. So that is, of course, the trade-off we've been working with.
Yeah, because I don't see too many columns in that area, between 27 and 24. In the end of 24, there's a column, looks like, on my plan anyway. And then you've got, at the ends of 31 and 32, you've got several columns there.
Yes. Yes, it's just where the, do you want me to just point out? Okay, here,
Not that I can see that far, but you've got, yeah.
In this line of columns,
Yeah,
if you start to move this, because the setback is here, if you start to move over here, then we end up with the columns in the lane because of the size of the building.
all right, because those columns, there's just 2 columns, 2 columns, right? If we moved it. All right,
It's where those columns fall, exactly,
Yep.
but for that width of that building.
I mean, that's just very narrow. I mean, I've been in garages that are like that. which I think, you know, and again, it just goes down to when they do zoning, I mean, there are reasons why they do the density and the number of units and the rest of the stuff on a property, because then it makes things work better. You know, and that's a concern. But anyway, I won't belabor that point. We can go on, because I have questions and some other things.
Okay, but I'm going to just stick with the parking issue, if anyone else had a question on that. I did have one other, towards the rear of the building, back towards Chester Street. On one of the plans I saw the word ramps.
Yes. So,
We're not talking about access points to the garage, are we?
oh, no, those are pedestrian ramps to make sure that the site
that's
is
fine.
accessible to everyone, yeah.
That's fine. Okay. Parking issues, ladies, gentlemen? John, Catherine, no? So the second, thank you, the second variance request from Mr. DeMarco was setback. And I know we said we moved the building front to accommodate the neighbors on Chester. So the setback violation with your proposal exists both front and rear, or just front
Front,
only?
yes.
Okay.
So we've gone from a 30-foot requirement to a 20.5 on the setback.
And we're good on the other three sides?
Yes.
Okay. Questions on setback? Okay, and then we move on to open space. Okay, and I think she did as well. You got a question on the setback?
I think we just wanted to be clear that
Sure.
it's not usable open space, it's lot coverage.
Lot coverage.
That actually is
Okay.
that third piece.
I
Okay.
apologize, I was.
Okay. So your third category, we should more correctly
lot
state
coverage.
lot coverage?
Yes.
Okay. And on that, was it, you
So-
were going to be at 38 now, and
We're going to get 38 instead
required
of
is
30.
Instead of 30, it's
Yes.
38?
Yes.
Okay, and in calculating that, it's structure and not patio, and it's just structure, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Questions on the lot coverage issue?
And that's a percentage towards the total area of the lot?
That
Is that correct?
On deriving it? Yeah, building and lot. You get about 36,000, I think, lot size. And Catherine? One moment here. There we go, I think. Oh, I got to shut someone off. I'll shut John off. There we go.
Oh, great. So we're on item 3 now?
Yes.
Lot
We
coverage,
are.
okay.
Lot coverage.
You mentioned earlier that the outside of the building is all accessible, meaning someone in a wheelchair or a visually impaired person could get around without having any issues, and you're meeting all code requirements, you're not applying for any state variances for MAB compliance.
That's correct.
How about the inside of the building, which would pertain to the actual size of the building? Are you following MAB guidelines within each unit and providing ample space for adaptation for anyone in a wheelchair?
Yes, and actually, particularly in this project, because under MAAB, you don't, if they're condominiums and not rental, Group 2 units are not required, but in the case of this group, they feel that it's important, so we do have at least 2 Group 2 units being planned for the building.
Okay, so that probably does add to your square feet a little bit to
Yes.
accommodate those MAB requirements.
Yes.
Thank you.
Lot coverage. Okay. Before we move to number 4, you just said something that made me think of, oh, could you just, I'm off my 4-section of trail here. On the layout, all the units are independent with kitchens and baths.
Correct.
However, there's a lot of community space. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Each unit has its own independent, okay.
There's a community kitchen as well in the
Okay.
plans, you'll see.
So our last section was, I can't read my writing.
Density.
Density. Would you address that for us again, if you would, please?
Density is, in this particular situation, it's required to be 1,500 square feet per dwelling unit. We're at 1,073 per dwelling unit. These are owner-occupied. They've decided that they would create additional space through the common areas They've added additional living space through those areas. The density, doing 30 units is where they're economically pushed to. They've done everything. The process for designing this, and I think that the architects could take you through it. This board has seen me before. I've done a lot of projects throughout the greater Boston area. I've never seen a process like this. They met with the entire group, laid out a number of types of developments. They had voting. They had the various unit owners talk about placement of units. They had consensus building. This is literally hundreds of hours worth of development to try and get the project down to what it is. And that is all value engineered, to use a term that I think applies. So we've done everything we can to reduce the density. This is the variance that really sticks when it comes to a literal enforcement of the statute would be onerous to these people. They are going to live there. They are going to market it to like-minded community members, people who want to build community, and the density is what it is. We've done everything we can to reduce that.
In the metrics on that calculation, we have a lot size of 34,620, and the calculation on deriving that?
Based upon 30 units.
Okay.
And this.
In the site area?
Yeah. I don't have it in front of me. I apologize.
The 1,073 square feet per unit is what, as designed. I'm sorry, 1,073 square feet per unit. Yes, correct.
That was shown, I think, on sheet C100 in the legend. Yep, that's what they reflected. 1,500 was code, and 1073 is what it's showing. Okay. Was it your firm that prepared these?
The civil drawings were prepared by H.W. Moore, and the architectural drawings were prepared.
No, yeah.
Sorry.
Every page is stamped but one.
Oh, which one's not stamped?
The last one.
The details?
Yeah.
Because I think it's because it wasn't required for this set. We can have it stamped if you
Kind of an
prefer.
important page.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
One point of information. There is a discrepancy between the lot coverage that the survey and the assessor's map.
About 2,000 square feet.
Exactly, and
34
that would
to
increase
36.
the number.
I know
We've
that.
been very conservative in
Yeah.
showing you what we're at.
The city has it at 34,620, and I saw that your plan was
32.
32, yeah.
Yeah. We've tried to give you the worst-case scenario.
Okay, thank you. Catherine?
At any point, did you actually comply with this last ordinance for density before meeting with abutters or before you took off the fourth floor?
It's in the process of working with the client.
The client or the abutters? It sounds like you made accommodations to the neighborhood or the abutters.
Oh, sorry. So are we talking specifically about the density issue?
Yes.
I think that's a good question.
So, yes, if we had been allowed a fourth story, the density would have been a different calculation and would have, it's changes. Malden's zoning has a lower density, I'm sorry, confused, a higher density allowable with a higher number of floors. So there is a difference calculation there, but at the end of the day, it's still a number of units that fit onto a lot. So pushing it down did skew the calculation.
Anyone else? We seem to have retired the fourth one, so I think maybe we'll open it up to the public if all our members are all set at this point. And go ahead, Mr. DeMarco.
I apologize for interrupting, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I have received in my email,
As
and I'm
have
not
I.
sure if you've had the same number. But
I got about 18.
Okay, I've got 15 here, so I'll bet they overlap, but I'm not sure if you'd like to have them for the record in case there's differences.
Sure, sure. I thought you were going to address whether we need to read all of them.
I can't address that
Okay.
for you. I will state for the record that we did have people question. When open meetings, neighborhood meetings, people did question. There was originally opposition. You heard about the 4 stories. We have gone back to everybody who attended a meeting with us, the abutters, et cetera, to talk to them about, and I believe that we have gotten past any of that. I have not heard about any opposition. I will represent that every one of the letters that we have handed in and every letter that we've received has been in favor of the project. My clients would not require that they be read into the record fully, but that they'd be made a part of the record if the board would allow.
Certainly. And I do want to mention each one. I just wanted to maybe not have to read all of them, but, and if some folks are here and they've also submitted, you know, they're going to be welcome to come up and speak as well. So why don't I do this? Why don't I go through the list, and if anyone is here, I won't read it, and I'll let them come up when we open it up for folks. I know the mayor's pretty busy, so I'm assuming he's not here. So this one's from the mayor, and he's in support of the petition. He's writing to support it and in seeking the variances that are required. The proposals to build a co-housing community development on the former Legion site. It's a unique housing type that will serve a broad spectrum of residents and families who have already expressed desire to become vested in the community. The demand for this type of housing is strong, as evidenced by the disclosure that 24 of the 30 units for sale are under commitment. That's still an active number, 24 under agreement? Yeah. It should also be noted that the Bay State Commons plans to incorporate an affordable housing component in there as well. And so again, that was from Mayor Christensen. I will give you these so that you won't have to copy all of them. Okay. So the second one is from Naomi Brave. And she said she's a Malden resident and she's in support of this project. She thinks it's smart development for the city's needs and wants. The building's well-placed, thoughtfully designed, appropriate to the site and the neighborhood. And co-housing, the folks developing it and investing their own funds to make it happen are also the ones who will live there. And again, she's supporting this project. She doesn't list an address, Naomi Brave. And then we have Susan Lawrence. Okay, that's not her. I'm writing to support the proposal at 368 Pleasant Street. I believe it represents a desirable, innovative approach to housing expansion in Malden. As a Ward 3 resident, I attend the First Parish Malden Unitarian Universalist congregation on Elm Street, across the street from the development, and my daughter attends BB School across the street as well. And that's Sue Lawrence, 176 Glenwood Street. Then we have Anna Stern, a Ward 2 resident since 2015, writing to express her support for the project. She knows a few of the potential occupants and can't stress enough how inspiring they are and how this project will help highlight the positive impact people can have when they work together. And then I have Alan Post. You want to come up, Alan? Okay, that's fine. Alan's at 29 Corey Road. He'd like to express his support for the proposal. He thinks the underground off-street parking is a great way to allow residents to own rarely used cars while keeping the roads clear. The site is ideal for transit-oriented housing, being a short walk to the Malden Center. I wish I could have done that to someone who wasn't here. Now we have Nyla McCullough from Woodland Road, and she happens to know a group of people who wish to build a co-housing. She thinks it's great. I live in Malden. I'm a homeowner, it seems. Co-housing is a creative and unique approach to intentional living. And frankly, I love that this group has chosen Malden. She understands there's some controversies regarding some variances that are needed, and she's hoping that the board could see fit to grant those. Again, Nyla McCullough on Woodland Road. And this is David Santatalaka on Perkins Ave. Long-term resident writing to ask us to support the development. The 30-unit project will be owner-occupied, energy-efficient building designed for social interaction. The co-housing model is designed to foster social interaction. She believes the project would be beneficial to Malden, and she references the proximity to the public transportation. And we have Susan Cockrell of Summer Street, and she's writing to support the project. She's a 20-year resident up on Summer Street and would love to see this project built. Her friends, she references the two names, are two owners of the property that will be living in the building. And they're creating, the project is creating underground parking that will help to often folks to use public transportation, given that it's right next door. Then we have Laura Clifford, 31 Otis Street. And she's been in Malden for 30 years. She's writing to show her support of this really innovative project. This kind of smart growth near the subway should be encouraging. And the fact that it's condos, not apartments, introduces a more of a mix for the city. Okay. Jennifer Magrone from Olive Ave. I live at Olive Ave and have regularly voted in Malden for the last 16 years. I love how diverse the city is on many levels. I look forward to living in the city which welcomes co-housing. I've seen the plans for the development and think it would be good to allow this to be built. Nancy Free. Hi, Nancy. Want me to read it, or would you like to come up? Okay. Nancy is a Malden resident. She strongly supports the project at 6368 Pleasant Street. She considers it smart development and the type that Malden needs and wants. The building is well placed, thoughtfully and sustainably designed. The people developing it are from the area. They are respectable, middle-class, well-educated folks who want to live together in a community. I am personally acquainted with at least 6 of them from my church and would welcome them as neighbors. This group has worked very hard to satisfy the numerous requirements of the city in their design. The variances they ask for are minor and are necessary. This is co-housing, a somewhat new concept for Malden. The folks developing it are investing their own funds to make it happen and are also the ones who will live there. This kind of intentional community will be good for Malden and the neighborhood. The group decided on the property before our moratorium was announced, and this has added significant delays and cost to their project. Even so, and even though they could have backed away, they remain committed to the project. I feel we should recognize and acknowledge, honor that commitment to the town with commitment of our own so that they can get on with this worthy project. Malden has seen fit to allow erection of several huge commercial projects full of luxury apartments, but it now balks at the modest project by nice local people who simply want to live here in the community. And she urges approval of all requested variances. And then I have Rima Abusalamian. I know I didn't do that right, so I'm glad she's not here. As a Malden resident, I am writing to express support for the Bay State Commons, as I believe it would be a positive addition to the continued development of Malden. The project's benefits are unique from any other multifamily housing Malden has seen, and I think they're important to note. Restoration of green space, proximity to public trans, the group's core value of neighborliness, and members' desires to be owner-occupants. Approving the Bay State Commons will continue to progress the development of Malden and shift the movement in a more innovative direction. Diversity in housing is important as different people are drawn to varied living situations. Malden has the potential to be the place that offers that to its residents. And she's a resident from Eastern Avenue. I have Virginia Remedy Brown. Okay, I'm a longtime resident living in Ward 3, and I'm writing to voice my support for the Bay State Commons, a multi-generational co-housing community that is seeking to build multifamily dwelling. Bay State Commons is composed of individuals, couples, and families from Malden and surrounding cities. Co-housing is a balance of private condominiums and shared common space. The members purchased the Legion site and would like to build 3 units. I urge you to publicly support the Commons in their appeal to construct the 30-unit building. I'm getting into duplicate material here. So this gentleman is a former member of the Legion. And I thought he'd get emotional because it's not going to be there anymore, but that was nothing short of that. This is Mr. George Shahidi, who said that this memorandum is to acknowledge that the Post 69 was sold to Bay State Commons on April 2018. Post 69 would like to inform the Planning Board. It was addressed to the Chairman of the Board of Appeals, but in here he states Planning Board. I think it was just an oversight. Post 69 would like to inform the Planning Board that from the time that our Post signed a purchase and sale agreement to the actual sale, Bay State Commons has been understanding of our situation and provided the Post the opportunity to remain in the building for more than 9 months without any stipulations. Further, Bay State Commons have honored our single request to acknowledge our presence in the building for 83 years by erecting a monument so that all veterans, present and future, will know of our existence there. And then I have Amanda Treat from Woodland Road. I want to voice my support for Bay State Commons. I got to meet a few of the people who are signed on for this project, and I would be happy to call them neighbors. And she makes mention of it's an environmentally friendly project and references the proximity for the public transit station. President Councilor Debbie DeMaria. Okay, Councilor DeMaria wrote, in regards to the Malden Senior Community Center, I think she misstated there, on the petition of Bay State Commons for a variance of 500, I'm sorry, that was addressed to me. Okay, what she said was, upon the modification of their plan as recommended by the Board of Appeals, she's referencing our hearing a few months ago, regarding height requirement and parking design, I am pleased to support this build. While this type of residence is quite unique, being only one of 3 in Massachusetts, I believe Bay State will add a dimension to Malden that is new, affordable, and meets the needs of our community, both young and old. I embrace this type of community living and feel confident that they will be good neighbors. For those naysayers that are not quite sure of this, I remind you that as we evolve into a new Malden with our diversity in religion, race, color, sexuality, we are consistently reminded that this is one of the greatest strengths of our success we boast as a community. Let's recognize the amount of modification and involvement Bay State has made, and let's welcome them into the Malden home. I trust the board will approve their request. And then I have Mr. David Hancock. Would you like to come up, sir, or you want me to read it? I need a break. Okay, so Mr. Hancock indicates he's been a homeowner in the city since 1981, and he's writing to support the project. He knows about co-housing since the 1970s. I believe several successful projects have been built in other cities and towns in the Commonwealth, and they are functioning now very much in the manner described, in parentheses, self-governing, cooperative, well-maintained, economically successful, close parentheses. I understand that each unit at 368 Pleasant will be a complete dwelling unit. in compliance with codes, and that the individual owners will associate together to own and share generous common space. I know some of the participants and believe they will be a great asset to the neighborhood and the city. I know that they have spent a long time together planning this venture, that they are committed to creating a safe, loving, and cooperative community, and they have developed a building design that provides for their needs, generally conforms to the city's regulations, and provides the benefit of added, privately maintained neighborhood open space. He urges that the board approve the variances requested. And we have Julie and Richard Ladner from Chatham Street. We're excited about Bay State Commons, the co-housing development plan for Malden across from the BB School. It will bring in people who care about Malden and its future, and please help to keep this project going forward. Priscilla Burns, she mentions, I think, her family, there's a number of folks referenced, Debbie, Steve, Craig, and Mr. O'Brien, I think that is me, who I don't, she's referring to, she wrote this letter to Mr. Condon, myself, the mayor, and she mentions she doesn't know me. Hi, I'm on TV. As I have expressed to most of you, I am so excited about Bay State Commons and what they are bringing to Malden. I am writing now in support of them and their beautiful building soon to be built, I hope, on Pleasant Street between Malden and the Laura Leonard. As I'm sure each of you are aware, this is not a fly-by-night organization looking to throw together a poorly designed and or built structure and then turn it around and leave it. Instead, this is an outstanding group of individuals looking to both invest in and live in our community. On a personal level, the group will be a huge asset to Malden, helping to take it in the direction towards which each of you has been working so hard to lead. From a building standpoint, because of the interest, education level, and experience of the members of the group, every effort has been made to create an extremely well-designed building. While I'm disappointed that the original design was rejected by the Board of Appeals, I sincerely hope the changes that have been made here meet with the board's immediate approval. And so I strongly urge final approval of the project. All right, I think we're almost there. I have Laura Clifford. I don't think I did Laura Clifford. I did, okay. Susan Cockrell, we did. Julia Landed, we did. Priscilla, okay. I think we're running into the duplications. I don't want to leave anyone out. I don't think I did this one. Vera Maya. David Hancock, we did. Amanda Treat. Yeah, okay. Jenny, yeah. Rima, Alan, Post. Susan, yes, and yeah. Okay, I think we did everyone except, yeah. And this last one would be Vera Meyer. I'm writing to support the Commons in their effort to create co-housing. I think that a development such as this one would represent a plus for our city, even if it is solely by virtue of being another option available for our residents. There are many people who would certainly welcome different styles and possibilities relative to housing, especially as they get on in years and perhaps find themselves alone with family passed away or moved away. Diversity and a wide range of options is good, as what does not feel right to one may feel exactly right to someone else. Being broad-minded and visionary is good. So I support them in what they are trying to do and hope that you will too. Vera Meyer. And I think that is it. So a number of folks, the mayor, the city council, and I know there's a number of folks here that would like to speak. So have at it if anyone would like to come up and contribute. I believe it's the ward councilor for the project.
Thank you. My name's Paul Condon. I'm the Ward 2 councilor. I live at 52 Gale Street. I'll be brief. I hope that the board will approve these 4 variances. I've attended several meetings with the neighbors, some of the future residents of 368 Pleasant Street and Bay State Commons. All parties were very proactive in listening to each other. The neighbors had some few concerns that had to be addressed. And the group, Bay State Commons, over the years, I haven't seen a development that worked so closely together to resolve any issues. So I thank the neighbors and hopefully the future residents of 368 Pleasant and Bay State Commons for addressing all the needs of the neighborhood. They were all tremendous, and I hope you will approve these 4 variances. I think it's going to be a great development, 30 units. People, you could feel their commitment to want to get involved with the city of Malden after meeting some of the residents. So I'll leave it to the board, but hopefully you'll approve this. Thank you.
Could I ask you a question, Mr. Conlon? With your neighborhood work that you did, I sat on Chester Street today. Is there anyone here from Chester Street?
Yes.
What numbers, what street numbers? Okay, and, okay, those are 2 of the 4 houses that are directly behind, 7, 11, 15, 17, and 21. So I want to, before the night's over, just make sure that those folks had something to say, and we talk about the lighting and drainage and all the stuff that could impact them, because they're direct abutters.
They were very active
Okay.
in meeting with Bay State
You're both going to
Commons.
speak, I think, right? Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Yep.
Anyone else like to speak? Councilor Winslow?
Stephen Winslow, a city councilor at large. Yeah, I am here to support these variances as well. I really give credit to Councilor Condon and the neighborhood and Bay State Commons for really working through the substantial changes to this development that has occurred since the initial proposal. It's a really good example of what I call community-led development, that we work to fit developments into our community. So I think that's a really good thing. I think the fact that we always talk of really desiring owner-occupied units. We know for a fact that owner-occupied units, people are just more engaged in the community, and I think that's an important thing here. We have a whole community committed to joining us. I think the co-housing thing is unique. I've had a chance to, at one point, visit the co-housing in Jamaica Plain and see they were part of the Porch Festival in that neighborhood, and just seeing everybody in that community out enjoying it and the great common space there. I also lived in a cooperative during college and worked on a board to run our own dorm, and worked as a collective, and it was a very great living arrangement, very intensive. So but you can see that people here are committed to that intensity, and I think that will work well both as within the community in terms of working out parking arrangements and working on the co-housing. I really think the variances are justified because the accommodations they are making for the setbacks for neighborhoods. The shared space within the building, I mean, people are really committed to co-housing because they want to share space and be neighborly, and that really can justify the density. You know, there's basically the parking ratio is complied with, and given that the proximity to the MBTA, I think that this is actually more than sufficient parking, and I think that it can be worked out in terms of arranging how cars come in and out of there. So I'm fully supportive, and I do appreciate the effort of the ward councilor and the neighbors and the Bay State Common to work these through. Thank you very much. Great.
Councilor, do you know how many units are in the JP project?
I don't know offhand. I mean, that's what? 30,
And-
okay. So.
And where are the other 2 projects? I heard the 3 in the state.
Cambridge has 2 projects.
To Cambridge, okay.
Right, so,
13, okay.
so yeah,
Okay.
right. Thank you very much. Great.
Anyone else?
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Campbell Tompkins, a resident of 17 Chester Street, which is directly behind the proposed project. When this was first raised, I was not in favor of it, but over the months and working with the people involved, I have never really experienced such a level of cooperation and accommodation to our needs. And we had quite a list of concerns at the beginning. So I can stand up here without reservation and support this project and have no doubts that if we come up against something during construction, that they will be easy to work with.
You're a direct abutter, correct?
And yes, I've wanted to say yes, I'm a direct abutter.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Deirdre Campbell Tompkins. I'm one of the 3 owners of 15 and 17 Chester Street, along with Liz Campbell Tompkins and my brother Ken Campbell. I would like to express complete support of the modification and the request for variances. I see no problem with anything that's been proposed. As Liz said, I also feel that the relationship is an excellent one, so that if issues do come up, I have the confidence that things will be worked out and it's an ongoing communication. So I fully support Bay State Commons, and thank you.
Thank you. All righty. As long as you put it back together and not me.
I'm going to try to. Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Appeal, Councilor Craig Spadafora. First, let me apologize to my parents. It's not too often I'm in the chambers with jeans on, but it's the decoration day at the Spadafora residence. So I want to take a few minutes of my time to come down here and support this project. It is bittersweet. You lose a very active organization, a veterans organization, the City of Malden, that's been there for decades. Unfortunately, it's a sign of the times where these organizations are starting to slowly diminish and consolidate. So while this is a good story, there is a sadness from my perspective. It's something that I've grown up with my whole life. So well wishes to them. They can move on to the next endeavor as an organization. But a few talking points from my perspective. I've been a council in the City of Malden now for going on 11 years. And first of all, I've never seen this many residents coming out and speaking in favor of a project like this. Not that it's it's a new type of concept for the City of Malden, which I think is great. From my personal perspective, the first time I heard it, I was like, I don't know if it's going to work, but clearly, if you look behind me, it has worked. The thing that I've taken away from the letters, the notes, and the presentations is I've heard the word community. And something as a council that's what we're trying to establish in the City of Malden. Ownership is important to me. It always has been. I know we joke around with the word transient before, but unfortunately that is a stigma we do have in this city. And by having these owner-occupied, I think it creates a good sense of community no matter what your living style. So the first thing I would say is bravo to this organization for sticking around, working with the neighbors, working with the Ward 2 councilor. Once he gave it his stamp of approval, I'll be quite honest with you, they've gotten my stamp of approval. But parking, they have all the off-street parking, even though it's close to a T. This provides, I think, security for the residents in terms of they have a place to park a vehicle if they do have one. It's security for the neighborhood that we don't have a parking problem become more extended as we do now in the neighborhood. So there's a lot of good things here. But I would just have to repeat myself by saying building, when you build any type of development like this, we never heard the word community, and I have to give my praise to these people in the residents here that clearly want this, believe in it, and let me be the first person to welcome the new owners to the City of Malden. So I fully support this endeavor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. I'm glad to be part of this group tonight. It's an auspicious group. I'm Mike McDougall. I reside at 479 Pleasant Street. I'm not a direct abutter, but I'm within hailing distance of the project. I've lived on Pleasant Street my entire adult life. And I want to offer my support for this project for some of the reasons that have been stated before. Maybe there's a couple of different ones here, though, as well. First, again, it's obvious, it's closest to the T makes the parking, helps the residents access both the city and Boston at large without creating an added parking driving footprint. I think that the green space that's provided here and the fact that there seems to be plenty of parking as is required is in some of the other developments I've seen, that's very lacking, and so I'm glad to see it here. I believe that the look and feel of this place is really something. It's been carefully designed and shows a high level of investment, I think, by the group, the Boston Commons group, Boston State Commons group that's intending to live here. I believe that the owner residents here will also bring a high level of community involvement. Involvement of folks at meetings like this is hard to come by. Involvement in city life in general is hard to come by, and so I'm sure these folks will bring that. I think that this development will be a real plus for us all, and again, I fully support it, and I ask you to offer any variances that are needed to make this happen.
Thank you, Mr. McDougall.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? What about the young lady that was on Chester, the direct abutter? It's two different houses that I'm talking about. Yeah, okay, all right. She supportive? Yeah, okay. All right, so if no one else chooses to speak in support, we'll close that portion of the hearing. And what we're all wondering, is there anyone here that's in opposition? We'll open up the hearing for that. And I do not see or hear anyone, so we'll close that portion of the hearing. Mr. DeMarco, could I just ask about the point I had raised about those four houses on Chester? Consideration given to drainage?
Yes.
Lighting?
Yes. There's going to be screening elements that we're putting up to protect for privacy and lighting, as well as the drainage. There's been, we're actually going to be improving the landscaping along that border as well, because there was requests that were made for the terracing and landscaping. Those are all being addressed as well.
And how about traffic flow? Is it right up against
no,
backyards of them?
Going back there is really, we're creating access so the fire department can get around the building. So you're really just parking in that side area on the surface, and then everything going underneath.
So did you say one curb cut or two?
There are two curb cuts. One goes into the garage. And one goes around the property so that there's a ability to get
And
the
comes
fire
out
department.
over by the Malden building on the left?
Yes.
So you're not in the rear near Chester?
Yeah. Let the architects describe it, because I'll make a mess.
On the east side of the property, there's the 18-foot lane that comes up to 18 feet from the back of the property and stops, and that was adequate for the fire department to access the back of the building.
Okay.
And that's a permeable pavement, so it's not meant to feel like a...
Okay, thank you. John? I guess I need my glasses. There you go, John.
Okay. Just a couple more questions, because this came up over and over again, that the building is owner-occupied. You can sit down, yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, is it, and initially it's going to be, I mean, are there like deed restrictions? Is there a process people have to go through?
There is a process in order, you have to buy into this type of living arrangement to really, and obviously, as we've heard, 24 units already spoken for, and a waiting list is developing because not everybody wants different units. So yes, they are focused mainly on owner-occupied. I do not believe that I've seen rentals occur unless it's rentals for people who can't afford it first and want to rent to buy, because that's part of their affordability objective. So they're going towards people owning and being there permanently.
But I mean, like myself as a crass commercialist, right, and in real estate.
We're not going to be looking for you to.
No, you're not. But I mean, is there a way to keep me out? I mean, that's what.
Yes, they're good. They have the ability, if somebody goes to sell and somebody like yourself comes in, no offense, and says they're going to buy to rent, then there's a right of first refusal and the units will come in, buy it up and sell it to somebody who's going to stay there.
Okay, they have the right of first refusal, which they can or may or may not. Okay, and there was a mention, I don't remember where it came up, but that they plan to use the space inside for other organizations.
So it's not, we're not renting out space. But if community groups, like, for instance, this group in doing their meetings, has met at Cornerstone, which is one of the other developments. They're over in Cambridge. And Cornerstone, as a practice, these type of organizations say, you're a community group, you need a place to meet, we have an open night in our community room, please come in and make yourself, at home.
So it won't be, it's not a rental.
It's not we're not doing a
income,
commercial
right?
Organization, no.
All right, and as far, and there's, and I mean, this is obvious, but I mean, there's no place for guests, is that right? I mean, for parking, if the family comes to visit, or anything?
We have more parking spaces than the residents, even though we're meeting in compliance, we have more parking spaces than the residents need.
They have cars at the time, and now. Okay, all right.
Can you help me with the first element of the variance? What's particularly unique about this property that justifies the variances?
The standard is that a literal enforcement would be detrimental based upon the topography, et cetera, et cetera. The type of development we're doing here would cause a hardship because of the requirement to put the parking into the ground, the financial aspect of doing so, to fit that number of units onto the property. We are also dealing with the higher than average unit cost because of the additional community space that is being put in order to meet the objective of community building. So they are in many respects things that could we modify them? I said earlier, sure. If Malden wanted us to put in a 30-unit building that had a bunch of boxes and some hallways, then we could probably fit something like that in. As a resident of Malden, as a guy who works here, I don't want to see that development anymore. We've done the high-efficiency apartments. We need some community. And so by designing for ownership, we are designing ourselves into a box that requires these variances in order to meet those aspects. Additionally, when we get into the accessibility increases the footprint as well of the building.
Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay. I guess at this point, I would like to know if anyone would like to make a motion. We have requests for 4 variances. I'll just go through them again. It's the parking, because of the aisles, the setback in the front of the structure out by the street, and I think I heard from Mr. DeMarco that there's a couple other properties that exist currently that are already sort of built out to the street. I know I was by there today. I think the Malden building is. The Leonard School's pretty far back, but then the next one, 400.
The Liberty Title Company,
yeah,
where Jordan Shapiro's office used to be, that is much closer, as is the buildings going further down.
So there's a number of properties that exist right in that section along Route 60. And again, that's a setback issue. And then the open space, which is an open space, that's lot coverage. And the violation there was 8,000? 8%? Okay. And finally, on the density, which was the calculation that the young lady did for us, 1073 versus
1,500.
1,500. So would anyone like to make a motion on granting the variances?
I just have a preliminary matter. I think someone had brought this up before, that because they came before and we denied their administrative appeal, I think we have to find that the projects are separate now, that they're so different that they're allowed to come back. Is that the case? Because they're coming back on a different type of project. Do we have to find that they're now different?
If I may.
Go ahead.
That evening, remember, I came back before you, and I wanted to verify that what we had done was not to propose a project. What we had done at that time was to appeal a decision that there was no variance available to us. So we didn't actually get into a materiality issue. Based upon the case law, I would say that we are well within, but taking that aside, if this board's pleasure was that to see that first request as a actual appeal for a variance of the zoning, then I would say that we are materially different in our proposal.
The one submitted this evening is material different from what was in front of us in June of
That's correct.
2018.
That's correct.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's necessary, and I guess my preliminary thing, I would motion to allow them to proceed with these variances on the
Okay.
grounds that this project is substantially different than the prior one.
Okay. And do you need to address each one individually?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But
And-
that just for that, allowing them to be heard, he's saying.
Heard now, yeah. I think we have to have it
Nothing
on.
to do with the variance.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll second that.
yeah.
And so now, would anyone like to make a motion to grant the
Well, let's
variances?
vote on that one first.
This is only to allow them to proceed with these variances, because I think we have to, again, we have to find that.
And
this-
is everyone in agreement of allowing them to do that?
Yeah,
Yes.
aye.
Okay. So then, would anyone like to make a motion to grant the variances? All right, let me turn you on there, Bill. There you go.
And make a motion that we grant all 4 variances.
Okay. Will there be a second? Second, and all those in favor? Aye? Saying aye? Adam?
I'm opposed.
You're opposed? John?
I'm opposed.
Okay, so I believe the request is denied by a vote of 3-2. 3 supported Mr. Sullivan, myself, and Catherine, and opposed was Mr. King and Adam.
And I think we just have to get our reasoning on the record.
Okay,
Let me know if you agree with this. I didn't find that there was I didn't find that there was anything unique about the property. I'm very sympathetic to this project. I think it's a matter for the city council to amend the zoning ordinance to allow this. I just didn't find anything particularly unique about this property to justify it. Do you agree with that, or is there any other reasoning that you want to put in the record?
oh, sorry.
Now, again, I mean, I would say I'm very sympathetic. I think it's a good idea for a project. I think what it's done is again, what's been brought up numerous times is that the zoning that we have to take a look at is to prevent an overdevelopment for a particular lot. This property was, I don't know, I mean, was built, was conceived, was purchased and conceived without really, I don't think, looking too much at the zoning. And I think the lot can hold this kind of a building. They just have to make some alterations. And I don't have my calculator here to take a look at it, but I mean, they're trying to get that 30 units, and I understand about costs and things, but, that's not the purview of this board is what they spend on their properties, what they purchased it for, what they're gonna, what they're gonna put into it. The fact is that this parking, I think, is just too much. I mean, and they can make adjustments by making either smaller units or making, fewer units in the building and still getting the property. And for the price, the price is not, has nothing to do with us. I mean, what they plan to do.
If I may, this was purchased before, and was under a purchase and sale agreement before the moratorium, which I believe the neighbors made clear, and the zoning changed and made this unable to go to the 4 stories, which we wouldn't be here dealing with many of these issues. So I believe that there is a very clear, and I have to, with all due respect, sir, I have to disagree. It is clear from the case law that a financial issue for the development, a literal enforcement of the ordinance that would cause detriment when there is no detriment to the neighbors, and you have heard that, I think, more than any other development I've ever seen in this city, that we are in a position where fiscal issues are allowed under the statute. You've heard that. You've also know that this was an issue that they entered into before they ever heard about a moratorium. They were pointed at this property by the city itself for development. They've done everything they can. With all due respect, members of the board, I think that the finding is inaccurate as to the record. I appreciate your position, and I will make my clients aware of it. They are here.
Did you want to put anything else on the record, John or Adam? Okay. All right, thank you. Sorry. Mr. Mills, where's the Mills? Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Just for the record, the financial hardship that I'm going to suffer is hundreds of thousands of dollars personally that I've already invested in this project, which we will not recover. We have paid for these folks, we've paid for the lawyers, we've paid money to the region, and it's gone. There is a financial hardship here. We can't recover our costs at 24 units. We need to spread it over 30, and I'm sorry to see it the way you see it. I believe that the town is making a terrible decision, and you will not like what goes in there instead.
Folks, we closed the public hearing.
This project is not going to move forward because of the financial reasons. You simply can't have regular people afford a unit where there's 20. That is material. And this kind of project is great for Malden. I'm shocked. I am totally disgusted.
186 Mills. We're going to wait a minute or two, okay? No, come on up, but I'm just going to let the crowd clear. Come on up. All right. Okay, so we're just going to wait maybe 2 minutes for most of the folks to leave, okay? This is Mill Street, 181 Mills. And he submitted the, yeah. I got one. I'm sorry, I have one. I have one. All right, so this is the hearing for 181 Mill Street. Fu Tran requesting a variance of section 400.1.2.1, chapter 12 of the revised ordinances of 1991, as amended of the city of Malden, namely a dwelling, single family with a side yard setback violation, as per plans at the property known as and numbered 181 Mill Street, also known by assessor parcel map 99, block 455, parcel 514. We do take notes of everyone participating, so we need you to give us names and addresses. I know the homeowner is here, correct? Mr. Tran? Okay. And this gentleman is doing work for you?
Yes, I'm
Just use the mic for your phone.
hello, good evening, and thank you, Mr. Chairman and the board member.
Okay.
My name is Ty. I'm a contractor who lives in Malden.
Okay,
And
could you just spell your name for us, please?
Thai, first name, and the last name is Lee, L-E.
And your address?
120 Harvard Street in Malden.
Okay. And you're a contractor for the project?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And so you can just give us a summary of what's being proposed? Okay.
Yes, actually, Mr. Tran have a plan for demolish the existing non-conforming detached garage, and he gonna reconstruct with a new non-conforming attached garage. The new garage gonna be maintained as the same as the non-composed, and we are not gonna make any extend setback or anything. So basically, we just try to attach the existing garage to the house because he needs some parking space for his sons later on. They're going to be driving, and he also have a 77 mother-in-law. She have a very difficult to walk down to the basement and going up to the floor, the living floor. So that's the reason why he tried to extend it.
Okay, so currently we have a detached garage.
Yes.
And we're proposing to demolish that.
And make it attached to the house.
Well, you're going to demolish it and build a new one.
Yes.
And it's going to be attached to the dwelling.
Yes.
And by doing that, the compressor and the jog are going away, right? We talked about that little jog. Does that go into the basement or into the house?
They go to basement.
That goes into the basement?
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to remove those.
Yes.
Right? And do the new garage attached to the dwelling. And then will you, when you're inside the garage, the new garage, will you access both basement? You have like a split set of stairs, basement
Yes.
and first floor?
Yes, going
Okay.
down to the basement and going out to the garage.
Okay. And we're not going to create another unit in the basement, correct?
No.
Okay. Are you doing the work, sir?
Yes, I'm
You
doing
are?
work. Yes,
Okay.
I am.
Okay. And I think you touched on it, but it wasn't clear. On the violation of the setback, this property's on a corner, and its legal address is 181 Mills. So the side yard is Bryant Street and your neighbor at 179 Mills. The
And-
garage we're talking about is primarily in what would be the rear of the building, with the legal address being the front, 181. So our
Right.
violation, it's not in the rear of the building, it's on the side to the right, correct?
On the right, yeah, on the side, on the right.
If we're standing out on the street looking at his front door.
Right.
Okay. And the current setback is in violation,
Yes.
because it's 5.6, something like that?
5.6, yeah, 5.6.
The new garage, is it going to be on the same line?
Yeah, it's going to be the same like
So the setback will remain the same, it won't increase?
No, it won't increase.
Nor will there be a new setback issue in the rear?
No, no.
Right, okay?
No.
Am I right, correct on all that?
Yes, yes.
Okay, all right. Did you have anything else before I asked the members if they wanted to ask you some questions?
No, I don't
Okay.
have anything else.
Anyone have a question, comment? There is a plan in there, I think, right? I think I saw something. Yeah, okay. And it's gonna, the new garage will be 22 by 22 and a half?
Yes, sir.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So,
John? I think you're already up and running.
okay, so this is, I'm just trying to see here, you've got a side yard and, is it a rear yard also, setbacks? I mean, that are currently,
His legal address is 181 Mills, and so when you look at the property,
so he's 6'8" from the property, rear property line, and 5'4" from the side yard.
he's 5.6 on the, I'm looking at the proposed garage. Are you looking at,
Well, he's got in the,
he's got proposed foundation, I know.
right, so I mean, at the close right now, it's 5'4".
5.4 and 5.6, so say
And
5.5
6'8".
is,
5'6".
and 5.6, correct.
And what he's doing is
But
filling in
that's the side yard.
the 5'6".
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do see a rear setback issue that you didn't think there was. It says on your plan, it's showing 7 feet, that it would be the garage. The proposed, the new one,
Yes, yes. We
it
try
looks
to
to
move.
be
yeah,
7 feet from the
try to give-
neighbor in the rear, isn't it? The requirement's 10, isn't it?
10, yeah. But I
Yeah,
mean, it's
so you-
closest at 6'8", so there's two.
Oh, right. Either way, it's, yeah. So it's, there's setback issues both on the side and the rear, from what I'm seeing.
Right, but the rear, we're gonna give away like a foot, so we try to reduce from the rear. But we try to, because right now on the sides, we try to attach the edge of the garage to the house. That's the only thing that we're violating.
The plan I'm looking at showing proposed is in fact the rear line of the garage where it exists today? So it isn't an increase in the violation?
Which one are we talking about?
I'm
7
talking
feet?
about the rear one now.
The rear one is,
Yeah. It's going to remain the same?
no, we're gonna move it back, move it
Move it
in.
closer to
Short-
to his house?
No, to the house.
Closer to his house?
No, to our house. We're gonna.
Yeah, away
cut it
from
back.
the neighbor.
Yeah, well, away from the
Yeah.
neighbor from 1 foot.
But it,
Doesn't show that on the plan. Yeah, it doesn't show that on
Come
the
here.
plan, though.
you're 7 feet here, right? Right there. 7 feet.
Requirement's 10.
And then here, it's going to now be,
So he's got two.
if you
He's got one
add
on the
this on, it's
rear
going to
and
be
one on
5'6".
Yeah, 5'6".
So this violation is going to get greater.
Right.
Because right now, well, I don't know what this mark is, where the garage sits right here, but it's probably,
This is existing garage right now.
yeah,
And this is the edge of the house right here.
yeah,
We try to connect from the edge of this one to the.
right. But what I'm saying is you've got, where the garage sits right now, if we ignore this, it's 7 feet. Is that right? Is that what that is? From here, and this is 5'4",
That's the size.
where it is now?
Yeah, that's what he know.
Okay. And then this will be 5'6" here?
Yes.
Okay, so that will be, gives you a little bit more, so it won't be increasing it, it'll still be the same.
Which one's going to remain the same? The side
Well,
yard?
the side yard, no, that's your side.
Right, that's
The side yard will be 2 inches, I mean, it won't change, I mean,
Okay.
it'll still be the 5'4".
And what about the rear one?
The rear one, well, it's
He's
still
showing 6'8" or 7?
6'8".
No,
Well,
on the-
6'8".
On the proposed. I don't know what he's got currently.
I think he's just drawn over the plan. Is that right?
We're planning to give away like one.
You haven't seen that?
Yeah, so.
If it makes a difference if it's not an increase in the violation. It's already violating, we know that, but trying to establish whether it's an increase to the violation.
We're not going to increase, we're not going to increase, we're decreasing, we're not increasing.
This is supposedly surveyed, so it's,
Yeah.
it's stamped, so, I mean, it should be, measurements should be accurate.
I mean, in the narrative on the permit that was denied, it reads, the existing setback is 5.4, and the new setback will be 5.6.
It'll still be 5.4, but.
No, that's how it.
Well, I know, but it'll.
Nelson, the applicant fills this out, not you, correct? Yeah, the language on the, yeah. Yeah, please.
The way I understand it, and I don't have the plan in front of me.
Yeah. You're welcome to look at it.
The side yard setback does change. It goes from 5'4" to 5'6", which is obviously still in violation. I also understand that the rear yard setback is not changing. It is still the same violation that it is now.
Okay.
Yeah. So all of the side yard, the wall of the side of the garage is moving 2 inches, or not 2 inches.
So you only saw one.
It's still a violation, yeah.
Yeah.
So that existing structure is coming down, the new one's going up.
Yep.
And that side yard setback is the one that's moving.
And while we have you.
Well, you got me.
This is a house that it was 1 story, became 2 stories.
In 2015.
2015.
It was a ranch.
I'm not that familiar with the house.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
It was a ranch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Prior owner put a second floor on it.
But do we consider the coverage on?
The problem is he has 2 sons, a wife and husband.
Yeah, no,
and a mother-in-law.
we understand,
Yeah.
we understand that.
Temporary reason why he needs some more space for
Sure.
the family, you know.
I believe if you do the math on the lot coverage, the new, the proposed structure, which would be the garage and the house together, because they'd be combined, would be somewhere upward of 40%.
So that'd be too much.
Yeah, when it's attached, it's in the calculation, whereas when it's detached like it is today, that's an accessory building,
Any
right?
building is part of your lot coverage, so in any.
Attached or detached?
Yeah, so
Okay.
any building is defined as a roof supported by columns, piers, or a foundation that protects personal property, people or chattel, whatever that is. So the previous garage would have been included in the calculation, but obviously the new garage is bigger, so it's getting bigger.
You're not wrong, John, but what was put in front of us was just a setback issue. Right, I mean, he's non-conforming probably for frontage, for a host of things.
But now we're going to increase the violation because of coverage.
Yeah.
If we grant it. Sounds like to me.
You would be, yes.
Yeah. But what was quoted was just that it was a setback issue.
Yeah, I would say that was probably an oversight in our office, that
Okay.
that should have been, that section should have also been listed.
Lot coverage.
And it wasn't, but it's certainly something
Okay.
you guys can consider.
All right.
The lot coverage is increasing, yes. Yep.
No, I think his question is, are we to consider that in our deliberation as to that issue?
Well, I think by the rules of the Board of Appeals, you can't deny it for that reason. But
Okay.
you can take any aspect of the property into consideration in your decision. So,
Okay. All righty. This gentleman here to participate? Are you here to? No,
I'm just taking notes. Sorry.
Oh, okay, okay.
I just couldn't hear.
Okay, great. All right. Any other comments, questions? No? Okay. Did you have another question or comment?
No, I don't have
No?
anything.
All right. So we'll open it up for the public, but I don't see anyone. We've got our building inspection commissioner and this gentleman who's not looking to participate. So we'll close the public hearing, and I would entertain, go ahead, did you have a question?
Well, I suppose we should make a motion first before we make comments. But I'd move to deny the petition. And the reason being, I think that it's an overuse of the lot, and that the lot's just too small to support that much of structures, and it's already in violation, and it's not going to cure the violation by denying this, but I think that it prevents an overuse of the property.
Okay, and in your motion, do you want to specifically address the specific issue that was put in front of us about the setback? Do you think it should be in our?
What, that's
part of the reason for being denied is?
It's a setback issue, yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be, increasing the area of the setback. That'll
Okay,
be
so it's both the lot coverage and the increase to the setback?
Yeah.
Okay. Would there be a second? I'll second it. And all those in favor?
Denying.
Yes, to deny?
Let me just make a comment.
Yep.
Okay. I'm sorry?
My understanding is of a non-conforming use is that if he's increasing it, if we find that there isn't a substantial detriment to the neighborhood, I believe he's allowed to do it as of right. So I think that's my take on it, is that we find that he's not really, if there's no real harm to the neighborhood, he's allowed to do it more as a right than as a variance. I know that for a number of times, a special permit's required for that. I don't believe that at least from what I saw from the bylaws here, I don't think this particular circumstance is contemplated by a special permit. So I think we have authority to do that. So that's my thought. I believe he has a right he can do it as of right because there isn't any substantial detriment. I don't see any reason why the neighborhood is particularly harmed by this small increase to the non-conforming use.
Thank you very much. Yeah, because the thing is, his son gonna be driving soon, and they need some parking space that, they cannot park on the Brown Street because it's a busy street. And second thing, like his mother-in-law is 77 years old. And every time when she go home, she gotta go down to the basement and going back up to the stair. And I try to do her a favor, like walking into the living space.
Okay, so the original motion that was made was to deny by Mr. King, and I did second it. So on that motion, could we get a vote from the board? Again, that's to deny.
Aye.
And there's two of us denying, so regardless of your vote, I don't think the variance would hold. Yeah.
And can you just give me the reasoning? What's your reasoning for denying it?
What's the reasoning? I think my reason is because it's creating another issue that going to the building department, they're probably going to be turned down on, which is the coverage.
So you're saying it's creating another violation?
Another violation.
Okay.
But your motion also addressed specifically the setback issue, which is what was in front of us.
I mean,
Yeah, okay.
But
Okay.
I mean, we can't, if we grant a variance that creates the need for a variance, all we're doing is causing more work at the building department, which we're not supposed to.
And I understand your rationale, and I agreed with you. I just wanted the denial language in the decision to at least include a clause or two that specifically went to the issue that was specifically in front of us, which was the setback. I've seen enough of the cases get overturned and into the courts that, the decisions have to be written in such a way.
So Jim, what's your specific reasoning for denying the setback?
Both the setback, the minor setback, as you said, the increase in the setback and the lot coverage, the increase in the density of the lot coverage. So just to get everyone on record, you folks were going to approve, Adam, you were?
Yes.
And Bill? Yep, and Catherine? Okay, so you got 3 votes approving it and 2 denying it. In the rules for a variance to be granted, unfortunately, it's required that you need to have 4 votes to support it. So the variance is denied. Okay? All right, thank you.
So that's the bottom line, or can we,
You could check with counsel, a lawyer, as to whether you wanted to appeal it. It would go into the court system. But it's done at the city level. You went to the building inspector, and he denied, and then this board was your recourse, and it's been denied, unfortunately. So you do have another recourse, which is to go into the court system. But you'd want to check with a lawyer on that for the filing and timing and cost and all those items. Okay?
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So we are all set. We did the minutes, correct? Okay. Motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let me make sure I shut this off. How do I get out of this thing? Right here? Exit concert, yeah, okay.